Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. And in this series, we're going to be going over Saturn in the houses, okay? Saturn in the houses, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about the 7th house, having Saturn in your 7th house, all right? And before we get into that, I want to remind you, if you enjoyed the little intro, which is my music video in the beginning of this video, definitely check it out. I have the link in the description box, as well as all my other videos and music as well too. So I'll definitely appreciate that. But yes, Saturn in the 7th house. And before we get into that, let's talk about what Saturn is and what the 7th house is. Okay, Saturn is the planet of discipline, okay? It represents discipline, how we discipline ourselves. Saturn is going to put lots of responsibilities wherever it is in your chart, and it's going to feel restrictive, okay? Because it wants you to be disciplined. Saturn's about hard work, building, work ethic, okay? The big projects we have in life, the work that we're willing to put in, and it likes consistency and time. So Saturn isn't going to like give you that fast come up, okay? It's through discipline, through time, and through consistency, and then you're able to really see the rewards through that hard work, okay? Saturn also rules your career, okay? The big projects. Notice how your career, you have to put a lot of work in it. You have to sacrifice. You have to deal with so much responsibilities and restrictions and obstacles, okay? But once you get there, you make it to the top and you're really stable. So yes, Saturn can sometimes feel like, oh my God, this is so hard to deal with. And it is hard to deal with, but it's hard to deal with because it's giving you challenges, okay? Here on life, we always have challenges, and these challenges are here to help build us. It's an obstacle. Everything isn't just given towards us. And this is where Saturn represents, okay? And then you have the 7th house. The 7th house deals with our relationships, our partnerships, okay? This is the one-to-one relationships, like our best friends, our romantic partners, even our business partners, people we partner up with, okay? It's also our, what I like to call our yin and yang energy. It's how we balance our energy out. So a lot of times when we do make friends and relationships, a lot of times people are balancing out our energy, okay? This is the house ruled by Libra, so it's not just relationships and partnerships, but it's also how we balance things out, which is very mental, okay? Very mental, how we balance things out. So the first thing I'm gonna say when it comes to Saturn in the 7th house is there's a lot of like, I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot of obstacles when it comes to your relationships. You're gonna deal with lots of issues with your relationships, lots of relationships that don't work out, lots of relationships that feel very tough, and this is all types of relationships, friendships, partnerships. You're gonna go through lots of obstacles, just relationships that just don't work, like flat out relationships that don't work because Saturn wants to discipline you here. Saturn wants to discipline you here. Saturn wants you to have boundaries here, okay? If you do believe in past lives, okay, if you do, this could be a manifestation. You have Saturn in 7th house maybe because in your past life you were making lots of relationships with people and not having boundaries, and maybe they took lots of advantage of you or stuff like that. And then maybe Saturn came in your 7th house this lifetime to put in the boundaries, okay? And it puts these boundaries through having obstacles. So like I said, you're going to have lots of relationships that do not work out. Lots of relationships that don't work out, lots of problems in relationships, and it's going to cause you to, at some point, start creating boundaries, okay? Start creating boundaries. A lot of relationships could just be problematic, okay? This can also really suck out the romance in your relationships, okay? Romantic relationships, okay, the ultimate partnership is definitely ruled by this house, 7th house, okay? You know, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, you know, your fiance, whatever. This kid, Saturn can really suck the romance out of your relationships with Saturn in the 7th house, okay? So, you know, you don't really have these kind of glamorous, lovey-dovey relationships because you got Saturn here making it a hard time, a really hard time. You know, so, you know, the romance here can really be sucked out. People with Saturn in 7th house, they just have bad experience with dating, just never finding the right person, never having people that treat you in a very fair, loving way. It just always seems unfair and definitely not romantic, okay? And that could be a Debbie Downer, okay? Saturn in the 7th house is not the funnest placement, definitely. No Saturn placement really is about fun, but this could be a very hard way to adjust because, again, 7th house is ruled by Libra. It's very romantic and idealistic. It's all about balance and coming together. That's what relationships are. But Saturn here is causing a wreck, and it's sucking out all that romance out of it. So there could be a dryness, okay? Before you understand this and before you become more responsible with this placement, you could just feel almost like you're cursed, okay? And you're not, but you could feel kind of that way because it's like, wow, none of my relationships work. You know, like anytime I'm dating someone, it's always a problem. I'm never being treated right. Things are unfair. Things are never working. Like I can never get into something romantic. My best friends are always doing things that are wrong. There's always obstacles with these relationships. I can never keep these partnerships. They're always breaking apart or they're just causing so much stress. You know, there's no balance, okay? And that's Saturn causing a wreck because you need to build some boundaries. I truly believe Saturn in 7th house people, in order to really be successful with this placement, you need to have boundaries, okay? And Saturn's going to rock all your relationships up so that you finally get frustrated enough and you start creating boundaries, okay? You create these boundaries because you're tired of the BS. You're tired of the dysfunction, all right? So definitely build your boundaries with this placement because Saturn's going to be giving you, you know, a hard time with your relationships and the romance can really be sucked out of here. And that's another thing, you know, Saturn in 7th house, you might, and you have to be careful with this too because Saturn might make you very pessimistic or like negative towards relationships and not have that balance and that love energy that 7th house naturally has. Okay, Saturn's causing a wreck, so you know you lose kind of your romance, and you do have to be careful with that because as harsh Saturn is here, okay, it's trying to build better relationships for you, okay, but you got to get serious and you got to get out of the lovey-dovey stuff because that is sometimes what you fall for. You know, a lot of times we get into relationships, we love the energy, and then we fall for it, and we lose our boundaries. And it's not safe here because you've got lots of issues here, so you could be blindsided. So you got to, again, build these boundaries, not have such a romantic approach to your relationships because you got to get rid of, like, the illusions and the fantasy of relationships, and you got to take it more serious, okay? So that you can catch those negative issues and those problems, all right? Also, you know, with this placement, this is a great placement for business relationships, more serious relationships, partnerships that are for business. So when you do get married, when you do get into these partnerships, there should be a business aspect, whether you guys are working with each other, maybe you guys are working at a job, maybe you guys have a career, maybe you guys are business partners coming in together. Saturn wants you to be practical with your relationships. It doesn't want you to be so idealistic. Naturally, 7th house is idealistic and it's very lovey-dovey and romantic, but Saturn wants you to be more business orientated and wants you to build. So get into business relationships. Even with your romantic partner, even with someone you marry, this is a good placement to, you know, be in business with who you marry, okay? Be in business, make something practical about it, okay? Make sure the partners you are business orientated. Make something practical about it because Saturn wants to build these, wants your relationships to be more productive. You got to take the more productive business route with your partnerships, and that takes a more serious mind. Less idealistic, less romantic, more serious, more structured, more purposeful, okay? That's what Saturn wants you to do here. So business partnerships, career partnerships is very great for this placement. In fact, when you tap into your career, it's so good to do it with a partner with this placement. It'll really bless you. Okay, so like I said again, you know, Saturn always works that way. In the beginning with Saturn, it just feels crazy. It feels stressful. All your relationships suck. But once you build that resilience and once you become more serious and have those boundaries, you begin to not only have boundaries, but you when it comes to your relationships, but you also become very productive with it. You can create a business with someone, and you need to do that. Have someone who's willing to work with you. Don't just have a relationship for romance. It is not going to work with Saturn. Saturn won't allow that. Be productive with someone, and that will feel very romantic, okay? Saturn in 7th house people, because of the way you guys are groomed to be with relationships with Saturn, you guys are serious. So you guys don't really take relationships seriously unless it's productive. So you guys want to make a business out of it. You guys want to be practical out of it. When it comes to your relationships, even if you're not in business together, make sure that you guys are both working and helping each other out to live. There should be a strong, practical, productive energy in your relationships. Otherwise, it will not work, okay? You have to have that seriousness with Saturn in 7th house. And also, like I said again, if you're tapping into your career, tap into your career with your partner, okay? Tap into a career with another person. Make that with another person. It will really help here. It will really bless it here. Also, with Saturn in the 7th house, a lot of your relationships could be with more mature people or older people, okay? You could have lots of relationships with older, more mature people because Saturn's all about maturity. Saturn really gives you your rewards during your late 20s and your 30s. That's when Saturn really starts giving you rewards. So, you know, this placement can be a placement where you manifest partners and relationships with people who are older or just more mature. It doesn't even have to be older, just having a mentality of maturity. Someone who's older, someone who's seen, who are practical, who are more responsible, okay? Having partners who are very responsible, and just older, mature people in general who's been through life, okay? Who's been through their Saturn returns, okay? Who are established, okay? So Saturn in 7th house, you know, you can attract a lot of older, more mature people. Also, with Saturn in 7th house, you know, you definitely, piggyback on boundaries, you definitely have to practice breaking up relationships. I'm really gonna say that. Maybe people don't say that, but I'm gonna say, learn how to break off relationships, okay? This is going to be really good for you because a lot of your relationships aren't going to work. I'm just going to put it flat out. A lot of your relationships aren't going to work, especially in your early time. So you have to learn how to break them off because what that means is it's not really dysfunction. It's learning how to have boundaries and set boundaries and take relationships seriously. And when they're not being serious, when they're being dysfunctional, you know how to break them off. Learn how to break them off. Learn that when something isn't working, think about practicality. If it ain't working, if it's broke, you can't fix it. You know, 7th house is very idealistic. It's very much that love energy with that Libra influence. But with Saturn here, you got to learn how to break these relationships. A lot of these relationships are dysfunctional. Okay, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. Or if it is broken, you know, you can't fix it. You know, that's actually what it is. If it's broken, you can't fix it. So learn how to break off relationships. It's going to help with your discipline because that's what Saturn's here trying to do. It's trying to discipline your relationships. Okay, and if you keep sticking to people and sticking to these toxic relationships that clearly aren't going to work because Saturn's here, it's going to cause lots of trouble. So this breaking off relationships is really discipline. It's not dysfunction. It's discipline. It's learning boundaries. Boundaries within your relationships is such a big deal here. You have to learn boundaries, okay? So you gotta learn how to break it off. I don't care that you think, oh my God, I'm always in these relationships and they never work. I'm such a mess. No, you have to learn how to break them off. You're going through all these messy relationships to build your boundaries and to build more productive, mature, functional relationships, especially when you reach that Saturn return. But you gotta prepare, so learn how to break things off. Otherwise, you're gonna struggle with a lot of dysfunctional relationships with this placement. Also, with this placement, this creates long-lasting relationships, and that's the beautiful thing about Saturn. It feels like a nightmare, but really, once you learn the lessons, once you grow with this, These are long-lasting relationships because it's so business-orientated, and it's not just business-orientated, it's so structured. These are people who are mature, who work together, who build with each other, who are practical with each other, who can be in business with each other, who are responsible. And this responsibility and this maturity helps build long-lasting, stable relationships that last a long time. Okay, these are people who are consistent, who stick with each other, that practicality, that earth, that sturdiness, okay? Especially, and this is when you make it, when you actually learn your lessons. If you don't learn your lessons, you're going to constantly deal with a lot of dysfunction, okay? But if you learn your lessons, okay, you will get into partnerships. This can manifest such strong, stable relationships, okay? And also be careful sometimes, because that strong stableness, that consistency sometimes can keep you in with someone, too, that you might not want to be with. But overall, this is a great manifestation for long-lasting relationships when you finally are mature enough to make the right decisions and partnerships. Saturn will bless you with a real stable relationship, something that lasts long, something that really works, something that really keeps you structured in together, okay? And Saturn likes things that are quality. Saturn is quality over quantity. So the quality of your relationships, once you learn your lessons, once you have boundaries, once you have that self-esteem, is so great here, okay? So don't be discouraged. I know Saturn's giving you all these obstacles, making your relationships a hot mess sometimes, but you got to build this resilience because you need boundaries so that when your real partner comes in, you have that stable connection and it really sticks, okay? So yes, that is Saturn in the 7th house, okay? I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know this is not the funnest placement, especially with Saturn here being in the 7th house. It really sucks all that romance, but you need this. You need the discipline, you know? Like I said, if you believe in past lives, you could have had no boundaries with your relationships. No boundaries at all, and being used and abused. You know how relationships get toxic like that. So with having Saturn here, it's creating this stability. It's creating these boundaries. It's making you understand that you can't just connect with anyone. You got to have boundaries, all right? So I hope you guys enjoyed that. That is Saturn in the 7th house. And if you did, book a reading with me, okay? I do astrology readings and tarot. All you got to do is email me. We could go forward with that. Also, check out my music videos. All of that will be in the description box below with all the links. And I'll check you guys out on the next episode.
A higher spirit realm, you can take any path of life, maybe your darkest day.